Hi, I'm Clara. I'm 32. And lately, I've been waking up every morning with this strange sensation in my chest, like something hollowed me out in the middle of the night while I was dreaming of simpler days. I'm not sure how to say this without sounding like a villain in my own story, but I think I stopped being in love with my husband, Miles, long before he ever realized it. And maybe that's what eats me up the most. We used to be that couple, at least. That's how our friends described us. Loud laughs at dinner parties. Road trips where we couldn't keep our hands off each other. Whispered jokes in bed that made us burst into laughter even in the dark. He used to kiss me with his whole body, press his hand into the small of my back like he never wanted to let me go. But love like that has a shelf life if you don't feed it. I met Miles when I was 24. He was already working full-time as an electrician, steady and grounded in a way I wasn't. I dropped out of school once, restarted twice, always changing majors like outfits. He gave me something to lean on, something I thought I wanted more than anything: stability. Back then, I mistook stability for love. When I told him 2 years ago I wanted to go back to school, this time for nursing, he smiled and said, "I'll support you." And at first, he did. He made dinner, took on more overtime, paid the bills. But the more I studied, the more clinical hours I took on, the more I grew, the less we seemed to have in common. I remember one night about 6 months ago, I was sitting on the couch studying cardiac rhythms, highlighters all over the coffee table, and he came up behind me, wrapped his arms around me, like he used to. But the hug felt heavy, like it came with a price tag. He didn't say anything, just rested his chin on my shoulder while I flipped a page, and I could feel him watching me, not with warmth, but with confusion, maybe even resentment. I leaned back into him instinctively, and he kissed my temple, but it was quick, absent, mechanical. It used to spark something in me. That night, it just made me tired. We hadn't had sex in weeks by then. We kept saying we were both exhausted, but the truth sat silently between us like a third body in the bed. Some nights I'd roll toward him just for the comfort of skin, and he'd shift away before I could reach him. I don't think he even knew he was doing it. You can only tell yourself we're just busy for so long. I started having dreams where I was already living in my own apartment, where I passed my boards and came home to silence, and I wasn't scared of it. I started fantasizing about peace, not passion. The exact moment I knew something had cracked? It was a Tuesday. Rainy. I'd just gotten home late from a night clinical shift, and Miles had left a plate of food in the microwave for me. Chicken and rice. My favorite. A little sticky note on the fridge. Proud of you. Love you. I heated it up, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the food until it went cold again. I realized then I wasn't proud of this version of us. I wasn't proud of how we went from lovers to roommates with paperwork. And worst of all, I didn't know if I wanted to fix it. That night, I opened a blank Word doc on my laptop and typed 4 words I never thought I'd write. Divorce after nursing school. Part 2, Misunderstanding Builds, 1,000 words. Title: He found out I was going to divorce after nursing school, so he packed up and abandoned us. The thing about falling out of love is it doesn't happen with fireworks. It's quiet. Mundane. You notice it in the way someone sets the table for 2 but doesn't look you in the eye when you sit down. Miles thought everything could be fixed with touch. I think he believed that if we kissed more, had sex more, brushed skin more often, we could glue the broken parts back together. But what I needed was for him to look at me, really look, and see the way I was unraveling, holding myself together with caffeine and late-night crying spells. But we didn't speak the same love language anymore. If we ever truly did. Miles was a lineman for the electric company. He worked brutal hours, often out in storms and heat waves, climbing poles with 40 pounds of gear strapped to his chest. He'd come home physically wrecked, but still try to throw his arms around me, lips already searching mine before I could even take off my backpack. I used to love that urgency. But now? It felt like pressure. Like I was disappointing him just by being tired. "Hey, babe," he said one Friday evening, reaching for me the second I walked in the door. "Missed you." His hands slid around my waist, pulling me in before I could even drop my keys. I let him kiss me, lips warm, familiar, but when his tongue pushed gently against mine, I pulled back and forced a smile. "I smell like the hospital," I said quickly. "Sweaty and sterile." "I don't care," he murmured, his mouth grazing my jaw. "You're still the sexiest woman I've ever seen." And maybe 10 years ago, that line would have melted me. But now, it just felt off. I peeled away gently, pretending to head to the bathroom. I closed the door and leaned against it, staring at my tired eyes in the mirror. I didn't feel sexy. I didn't feel wanted, either, not for me, but for what I used to be. Miles didn't ask how my shift went. He never did anymore. Dinner was takeout again. We ate on the couch, TV humming in the background. He tried to rub my leg under the blanket, resting his hand just above my knee. I didn't stop him, but I didn't lean in either. "Have you thought more about applying to that hospital downtown?" he asked. "The one closer to my route?" I looked over at him, blinked. "What? You mentioned they were hiring. Wouldn't it be easier for both of us if you worked nearby?" "I haven't even graduated yet," I said, sharper than I meant to. "And that hospital has a terrible patient ratio. You know that." I just thought. He paused, chewing a bite of chicken. "You're gone a lot lately. It'd be nice to see you more." That should have sounded sweet. But all I heard was, "You're not around to make me feel secure." I set my plate down. "Miles, I'm not doing this to get away from you. I'm doing this for me. I know that." He sighed, rubbed his face. "But sometimes it feels like I don't exist to you anymore unless I'm standing in your way." I stared at him, stunned. "What does that even mean?" "It means I know something's changed. You barely touch me anymore. You don't laugh at my stupid jokes. You don't even ask how my day was. And when was the last time you asked about mine?" The silence dropped between us like a dish shattering on the floor. His jaw tensed. "I try, Clara. I try to hold you. I try to take care of you. But I'm not a mind reader. If something's wrong, say it." I stood up, blanket falling from my lap. "I do say it. You just hear what you want to hear. You think sex means we're okay, but I'm screaming inside and you keep trying to silence it with your hands." That cracked something open in him. His mouth opened, closed. "So what, now I'm the villain because I want to be close to my wife?" "I want to be close to someone who sees me," I said, voice breaking. "Not someone who misses the version of me who didn't know what she wanted." His face went pale. "And what do you want now?" I hesitated. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I wasn't sure I wanted to say it out loud yet. "I want to finish this program. I want to pass my boards. I want to be proud of myself again." "And then what?" he asked quietly. "Then what happens to us?" I didn't reply, because the honest answer was, I didn't know. Later that night, I found him in the bedroom, lying flat on his back, arms folded across his chest like a shield. I slipped into bed next to him, keeping a careful distance. But he rolled toward me, reached out in the dark, fingers brushing my arm. "Clara," he whispered. "We can fix this, can't we?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to mean it. Instead, I turned toward him and let him spoon me, his body warm and solid behind mine. But when his hand slid down my hip, I gently took it and placed it on my waist, holding it there like a boundary. He didn't say anything. He just left it there. And I stared at the wall until morning. It started with small things, me stiffening when he kissed my neck in the morning, pulling away when he tried to cut my breast while I brushed my teeth. I didn't mean to do it. It just happened. Reflex. Like my body knew what my mouth still couldn't say. I wasn't angry at him. Not exactly. But I felt crowded, like he was always reaching for something I didn't have anymore. Like I was a well that had dried up, and he kept coming back with the same empty bucket. One night, we were in the kitchen together, barely speaking. I was wiping down the counter. He was doing the dishes. His hand slid behind me, playfully smacking my butt. I froze. He laughed like he always did. "Can't help it," he said with a wink. Still got it. I didn't say anything, just kept scrubbing the counter, even though it was already clean. He didn't notice. He just went on humming some song under his breath, water splashing in the sink. Later that night, he climbed into bed behind me. We hadn't spoken much over dinner. Just easy stuff, work, bills, the weather. Nothing about us. Never about us. He reached for me again, spooned me the way he used to. His palm pressed against my belly. His mouth brushed my shoulder. "You smell like lavender," he murmured, warm breath against my skin. "That lotion you use." I let out a quiet hum, not sure what else to say. His hand moved lower. Slow. Familiar. Tracing the curve of my hip. I should have wanted it. I used to crave his touch. But now? I lay still, heart racing, not from desire, but guilt. He kissed the back of my neck, and I flinched, barely perceptible. But he noticed. He paused. "Clara." I forced myself to turn around. Smiled like it didn't ache. "I'm just tired," I said, brushing a hair from my face. "Long day." "You've been tired a lot," he said, studying my face in the soft lamplight. "Is it school? Or is it me?" I opened my mouth, closed it, tried again. "It's everything," I said finally. He sighed and sat up against the headboard. "You don't touch me anymore, Clara. Not even little stuff. No hand on my back when we pass each other, no kiss goodbye. Not even a smile half the time." I sat up too, pulling the blanket over my lap. "I don't know how to explain it," I whispered. "It's not that I don't care. I just feel disconnected. Like I'm in two lives at once, and I'm failing at both." He looked at me, pain flickering across his eyes. "You used to look at me like I was your home." "I used to feel like I had one," I said before I could stop myself. He flinched this time, turned his head away like I'd slapped him. We sat there in silence for a minute. Then he reached out and touched my knee soft, hesitant. "I miss you," he said. I nodded. "I miss me too." He leaned forward to kiss me then. And I let him. His lips were warm. His hand slid around the back of my neck, pulling me closer. The kiss deepened, gentle but expectant. And all I could think about was how my textbooks were still open downstairs. How my clinical evals were due. How my chest felt tight instead of open. I pulled away first. He looked hurt, but didn't say anything. Just stared at the sheets. I curled back under the blanket, facing the other way. My heart was pounding, throat tight, head spinning. And the thought surfaced again, sharp and bitter. Why does everything have to turn into sex? It was supposed to be a date night. Miles had even dressed up, button-down shirt, hair combed back, cologne I hadn't smelled in months. He'd made reservations at that Italian place we used to love, the one with the candlelit booths and soft music. I should have appreciated the effort. I tried to, but even before the appetizers arrived, my chest felt tight, like I was bracing for something. He kept reaching across the table, brushing his fingers over my wrist, smiling like we were still the couple who used to laugh over wine and pasta. "So," he said, after a sip of his beer, "I've been thinking. Once you graduate, we should take a weekend trip. Just us. No stress, no school, no work." I looked up from my untouched lasagna. "A trip?" "Yeah. Like to the coast, or maybe that little cabin in the mountains we stayed in a few years back. Just us. A reset." I forced a tight smile. "I don't know if I'll be able to take time off right after graduation." "You could ask. They'd understand. It's just a couple days." I nodded but said nothing. He leaned in a little. "Clara, come on. We need this." And that's when I cracked. The words came out before I could stop them, shaky and louder than I meant. "We can't fix this with a trip, Miles." The table went quiet. Even the couple next to us paused their conversation. Miles stared at me, blinking. I wasn't trying to fix anything. I just thought, "No, you were," I snapped, voice trembling. "You keep thinking if we go somewhere or have sex or eat dinner under soft lighting, it'll magically fix what's broken." His jaw tensed. "Can you not do this here?" "Why not? We don't talk about it at home. We barely talk at all." He dropped his fork, the clatter louder than it should have been. Jesus, Clara. I felt it rising in my throat then, everything I'd been holding down. The exhaustion, the pressure, the loneliness. I'm drowning, Miles, I whispered, voice cracking. I go to clinicals, I study until my brain feels like it's bleeding. I come home and pretend to be this version of me you still think exists, and I can't do it anymore. I don't even know who I am when I'm with you. He looked stunned. Genuinely stunned. Where is this coming from? Is this about school? Or is it, it's everything, I said, tears spilling now. But mostly it's this relationship that feels like a job I didn't apply for anymore. He sat back, face pale. So what, you're done? That's it? I wiped my cheeks, trying to catch my breath. I don't know. I just know I can't keep pretending that we're okay when every touch feels like pressure and every conversation feels like a negotiation. We didn't finish dinner. He flagged down the waiter, paid, and we left in silence. The car ride home was hollow. And when we got inside, I went straight to the bedroom, undressed in the dark, and crawled under the covers. He stayed in the living room. I heard the faint sounds of the TV, but he didn't come in. I curled on my side, staring at the wall, throat raw from crying. The guilt came next, slow and heavy, like a weighted blanket I didn't ask for. I hated the look on his face when I said those words. Hated how I made him feel small. But I also hated how I felt, unheard, unseen, touched without being known. I buried my face in the pillow and whispered, why did I wait so long to say anything? And then the shame crept in. Because deep down, I already knew. He'd seen it coming. He just didn't want to believe it. And neither did I. It's been 3 weeks since the restaurant. Since I cried over lasagna and said everything I'd been avoiding. Since I looked the man I once adored in the face and told him I didn't recognize our life anymore. Since I broke something we still haven't tried to fix. Now, the silence fills every room. It's not loud, not angry, just still. Heavy. Like we're both afraid that even breathing too loudly might make things worse. Miles doesn't touch me anymore. He doesn't try. He still makes the coffee in the mornings like always, still loads the dishwasher, still folds the laundry, my scrubs, my socks, without a word. But it's different. Detached. Like we're roommates or strangers who know the shape of each other's routines, but not the weight of each other's thoughts. And maybe that's fair. I haven't exactly invited him in. Sometimes I catch him looking at me from across the room. Not with resentment. Not even anger. Just sadness. Quiet and tired. The kind of sadness that comes when you've tried and failed and you don't even know what trying looks like anymore. I miss him. God, I miss him. I miss the way he used to laugh in the shower, shampoo in his eyes. I miss the feel of his hand on my lower back when we crossed the street. I miss the notes he used to leave in my lunch, dumb jokes, terrible puns. I miss the version of us before everything got so complicated. Before nursing school swallowed me whole. Before I started thinking about how I couldn't be the wife and the student and the everything, all at once. I know he's hurting. I see it in the way he talks to the dog more than me now. In how he stays up late watching TV in the dark, volume low, like he's afraid even the sound might push me further away. And I hate that I'm the reason for that look in his eyes, the quiet one that says, I don't know where you went, but I'm still here. Yesterday, he left early. Didn't say goodbye. Just closed the door gently behind him, like he was trying not to wake a sleeping version of me who doesn't exist anymore. I stared at that door for a long time. And for a moment, I wondered what would happen if he just didn't come back. The thought chilled me. I want to believe we're still salvageable, that we're not beyond repair. But every time I think about starting that conversation, my throat closes. I don't know how to ask him to try again when I'm the one who pulled away first. And what if he doesn't want to anymore? What if all my silence and distance has convinced him it's not worth it? Tonight, I stood outside our bedroom and watched him sleep on the couch. He looked older somehow. Not physically, just worn. His hand was curled under his cheek like a child. I used to love that about him, how innocent he looked in sleep. I wanted to kneel beside him. Wake him up. Tell him I still love him, that I'm sorry, that I never wanted to become this cold version of myself. But I didn't. I stood there in the dark, heart pounding, paralyzed by fear and pride and grief. And I realized I had a choice to make. Try, really try, to reach for him. Or finally let go. I whispered, barely aloud, tomorrow. I'll decide tomorrow. The morning it happened was quiet, just like the days before. I was in the kitchen, pouring coffee into a mug with shaky hands. Miles had left early again, his pillow still dented on the couch. There was no note, no scent of his cologne in the hallway, only an absence that felt heavier than any goodbye. I had made a decision the night before. I was going to talk to him. I was going to open my mouth and say all the things I'd been burying beneath textbooks and resentment. I was ready to try, not just to save the marriage, but to stop lying to myself. But when I checked my phone that morning, there it was. A message. Short, tense, final. I packed a few things. Staying with a friend for a while. I know about the divorce papers. I get it now. Take care of yourself, Clara. For a second, I couldn't move. My eyes just fixed on the screen, like I'd misread it. But I hadn't. He knew. He must have seen the drafts on my laptop. I never sent them in. I never even printed them. But they were there, open tabs, whispered thoughts typed out in the middle of breakdowns. Thoughts I never had the guts to say out loud. And now he knew. Not from me, not from my mouth or heart, but from the digital trail of my indecision. He left without waiting for the final word. I sat down on the couch where he'd been sleeping for weeks. I picked up the blanket he always used, still faintly warm. And I broke. It wasn't a loud kind of crying. It was quiet, guttural. Like grief had finally found its home in my throat. Because I knew, in that moment, we were over. Not because we didn't love each other, but because I hadn't protected that love when it started slipping through our fingers. Because I let silence take root where intimacy used to live. And maybe he did too. But now he was gone. And all I could think about was how the last time he kissed me, I didn't kiss him back. I didn't even realize it was the last kiss. A few hours later, I walked into our bedroom and saw that he'd taken only a few things: a duffel bag, some shirts, his electric razor. But his wedding ring was still on the nightstand, sitting there like punctuation. Not a question mark. Not an exclamation. Just a period. That night, I wrapped myself in his blanket and sat on the couch, hugging it to my chest. I pressed my face into it like it could explain how things unraveled so quietly, so slowly, until suddenly there was nothing left to hold on to. I thought I'd feel relief. Instead, I felt haunted by everything we didn't say. I reached for my phone. I typed. I wasn't going to go through with it. I just didn't know how to talk to you anymore. I'm sorry. I hovered over send. Then I didn't. I locked the phone and held it to my chest. There's a part of me that still hopes he'll come back. That we'll sit on this couch, side by side, and talk like people who once shared everything. But I also know some silences speak louder than apologies. And sometimes, the only closure you get is the sound of the door not opening again. Hi, it's Clara. I guess if you've been listening all this time, you probably know more about me than most people do. More than I ever meant to share. And honestly, more than I've said out loud to myself. Miles left 3 weeks ago. He didn't slam the door. He didn't scream. He didn't fight for me. He just left. Like a breath slowly let out. And maybe that's the part I'll never quite get over. Not the leaving, but the quiet. How easy it is to disappear from someone's life when all the loud love has already faded. When he found the divorce drafts on my laptop, he didn't ask me why. Didn't ask if I meant it. He just took it as truth. And maybe it was for a moment. Maybe I did want out. Maybe I wanted to know who I was without carrying the weight of someone else's expectations. Or maybe I just wanted him to notice that I was drowning. Because love, real love, doesn't die in explosions. It dies in neglect. In assumptions. In all the words you never say because you think the other person already knows how you feel. I thought being touched meant being loved. But when you feel invisible inside someone's arms, there's nothing lonelier than that. I needed more than sex. More than forehead kisses out of habit. I needed to feel seen. I needed him to ask me how school was going and actually wait for the answer. I needed to be held without it turning into something he needed from me. But I never told him that. I was so afraid of being too much or not enough that I just swallowed it all. I kept smiling, kept saying, "I'm just tired," kept hoping he'd magically understand what I needed. He didn't. And maybe he never could. But that's not just on him. See, I've learned something these past few weeks. Something hard and humiliating and important. You can't expect someone to hold you through your silence. I thought love would just know. That he would just know when to step closer and when to back away. I thought connection meant he could read my mind. But that's a fantasy. A dangerous one. Because love, even deep, committed, years-long love, doesn't make you a mind reader. It just gives you someone who's willing to listen, if you speak. And I didn't speak. Not soon enough. So here I am now. Alone. A nurse, finally. A woman with a career she fought for, with a quiet apartment and a dog who still waits at the door around 6 p.m., like maybe he'll walk back in. Sometimes I imagine he will. Other times, I think maybe we were meant to fall apart not because we didn't love each other, but because we stopped loving each other well. And that's what I want to leave you with. If you're with someone, if you're holding their hand or watching them across the room, don't wait until the silence becomes the language between you. Say the hard things. Ask the deeper questions. And when they touch you, ask yourself, do you feel known? Do you feel safe? Do you feel wanted, not just desired? Because that difference, it's everything. And if you're where I am, standing in the ruins of something that once felt like home, be gentle with yourself. You're not broken. You're just learning. We all are. One heartbreaking, honest moment at a time.